It's winter time, but the sun's out today. It's very
Nice.
windy and cold outside though.
Oh, is it? I can
Yeah.
remember when I've been to Australia a couple of times. My brother lives there actually, and I remember going in the winter and I arrived and I was like, oh my goodness, it's so hot and sunny. And everyone's walking around Sydney in like winter coats and jackets. You can spot the Brit because I'm like, it's amazing. It's like 20 degrees. It's hot.
Yeah. Mm. How have you been?
Um, whew, whether it's related to this, who knows? Well, it all just is, isn't it? Um, I I had what I'm sort of describing as a bit of a kind of break 2 weeks ago, actually. It was after it was after I came to this session a couple of weeks ago, and I've experienced it once before, and I I was away, fortunately. I didn't have to work, but I just kept feeling like I was on the brink of tears um, a lot of the time. And then each day, at some point, I would start crying, and it was kind of like I couldn't stop. But it felt necessary, it felt useful, and and that lasted for quite a few days, and I felt really not low, but really um, confused, scared, lots of fear coming up, and but it felt like it was necessary, and it's almost I think starting to see things as they are and starting to sort of observe how I've been engaging in my life. It it's as if it was as if like all of this overwhelm had been building, all of this stuff that I experience a lot of tension in my body, and the more I'm aware of it, the more I realize I'll wake up in the morning and my muscles are sore because it's like in the night I'm just bracing against life. And it's as if the more I kind of step back and observe, I got to a point where my mind had sort of suddenly became aware of everything I've been pushing through and ignoring and squashing down, and it suddenly came to the surface and just kind of came out.
So that was the tears that coming out of
Yeah.
everything that, yeah, that
Mm,
letting go of chronic holding on, chronic contraction.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Or the starting of the letting go. It felt like a shift that needed to happen.
Yep, yep, yep.
Mm.
Does it feel like it's finished?
It feels like it was a bit like a psychedelic trip. It feels like it was the start of a process,
Mm.
rather than the sort of end. It kind of felt like the start of an undoing
Yep,
almost.
yep, yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because you'd be deluded again to think that was the end of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It felt very much like the start, and I was kind of aware at the time, this is good, this is useful, allow it. Um,
So that was going to be my next question. How do you feel about that? And and you just answered that, I guess.
mm, yeah, but it's what I've experienced post that is um, like an experience of physical exhaustion. I'm knackered, and and I think in terms of the undoing, there's certain areas of my life that I've been holding on, where after that, and I think realizing how, like, as I say, one of the experiences I've been aware of is how much physical tension I hold in my body. And as I understand it, that's a way that I've sort of, literally been trying to, like, block things out and control things. I've started to realize just how much of the world around me I have been for years trying to curate and control in order to kind of prevent
Yeah,
this.
yeah, whatever, for whatever reason, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
there's a bit of a contradiction here that, well, apparently a contradiction, and that is that you're knackered now, you're exhausted from this, and yet it would appear that you've stopped, at least to some degree, the holding on and the contraction that would create exhaustion, wouldn't it? That's so much effort involved in that holding and blocking and suppressing stuff. And yet now after that's well, after that's come to some kind of plateau, some resting point, you're still knackered.
mm, mm. I
What are your
think it,
thoughts about that?
yeah, I think I that's because I've realized I wasn't it or I wasn't allowing myself to experience the exhaustion before. So
Okay, so that's part of what you were holding down. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The way that I would deal with um anything in life, but particularly my fears, my anxieties, um, those beliefs, I would deal with them by just keep going, just keep pushing, just keep moving, don't think about it, just block it out. Um, and now that I'm not, and now that I'm realizing I don't have to because there's nothing there, it's kind of like my body's reeling from all of it's like, oh, thank God, like, whew, we thought we were never going to stop. And I guess it's kind of like the the shock waves, the aftershock of having spent, I would say, decades.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me if I'm hearing right, that this exhaustion
Mm.
is a follow on of what just happened. It's not about now, it's about the result of before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I understand it. Yeah,
Mm,
it's
right.
it's the release.
Now a big step here, a big sideways step, and looking at it a bit objectively, who's it happening to?
Mm. It's not. It's my uh it's a story that
Right.
I
Yeah. Okay. So what I want you to hear you say is that's a stupid question, Vince. That's a
mm,
really stupid question. Who's it happening to? Right? Okay. If I believe, if I actually go with that question,
mm,
there's nowhere to go. I've got no answer.
mm,
There is no answer to that question,
mm,
or at least the very closest I can get in an answer form is to say I have no idea.
mm, mm,
So can you see that this is just happening,
mm,
and it's the consequences of just a happening or
mm,
a sequence of happenings or whatever that you
mm,
learned somewhere way, way back to not be expressive, to hold things in, to
mm,
suppress all sorts of emotions. If you were too loud, you were told to be too quiet. You were told to be quiet. You know, if you were too exuberant, you were told to calm down. If you whatever. So it all ended up being that you just had to be, well, you had to pretend you were a robot.
Mm, mm,
And the consequence of that was that it became habitual to do that kind of thing. So that was, again, just circumstances and happening, and there was a body involved in those circumstances. Even that's a story, but it's okay
mm,
to have
mm,
that story at this stage. And so there is no blame, there is no fault, there is no guilt, there is no shame, there is none of that stuff involved
mm,
in that. It's a mechanical process of stuff that was taught, became a habit, and now that's changing.
mm,
You get that? Does that
mm,
feel
mm.
okay to you? Do
Yeah,
you, it resonates?
yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than there's something, because I see immediately that it would be very easy to replace the old story with another story that
Yeah.
post that
Yeah.
story, and it just gets meta and there's just more stories.
Mm,
Whereas actually, rather than and I guess that's my experience, that rather than there's something happening, there's like an unhappening. It just is
mm,
now rather
yeah.
than I'm
So
trying to.
how much do you recognise the existence of curiosity?
Um, in
Or
so much.
maybe you're not curious.
Mm, no, to there's a curiosity, but it can very quickly slip into judgment.
Oh, okay. So what's your reaction when you recognise that judgment has happened?
I am trying, as soon as I sort of notice, it's like it's kind of like a spiral. There's curiosity, and when I am able to, and the kind of times when I'm able to observe and notice and simply be aware, but they're becoming more frequent. When I'm able to notice, it can very quickly slip into, oh, I'm noticing that I'm worrying about the future, and then it will usually go to, "Oh, I need to stop doing this," but I'm trying to then bring in the curiosity, or what how I'm trying to then respond is, no, just allow, just
Mm,
be open and just allow, and almost trying to, like an experience of trying to just let things
yeah. So
pass.
can you get that there's a subtle difference, but an incredibly wide gap, a big difference, but the difference is subtle between I shouldn't do that and oh, there's a thought saying I shouldn't do that. So the same thought occurs, and one of them is, I've judged, and the other one is, isn't it curious that that one's turned up?
Mm, mm,
You can see a huge difference in something
mm,
between them, yet it's the same thought.
yeah, yeah. It feels like the second one, there's a playfulness
Yeah, but
to it.
the thought can still be, oh, I shouldn't do that. You go,
Mm,
oh wow, look at the energy in that. Isn't that interesting?
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, because it's what I'm becoming more and more aware of is, as you say, there's a pattern of energy to everything, and the quality of it is very different. So that I shouldn't do that will, again, what I will experience is a physical kind of clenching of my jaw and tensing of my shoulders and hands.
Yeah,
Whereas you could have exactly the same, as you say, the same content of thought, but in a more relaxed
Yeah.
way.
But the other one, that one with the clenching, you're very practiced at that from what you say.
Yeah.
You know, that comes very easily. It comes automatically because it's been going on for a long, long time. This
Mm,
how you should be. Of course, that's the reason for any suppression or
mm,
clenching, contraction, holding in,
mm,
suppressing, holding down. All of
mm,
that comes because of a story about how you should be.
mm,
What a fucked up story that is.
mm. Yeah. So many rules.
Yes.
I've
Yeah.
so many rules about everything.
Mm, yeah. But stand in front of a red rose and yell at it and tell it should be yellow and not red.
Mm,
It's just obviously incredibly ridiculous, isn't it?
mm,
And
mm.
to tell
Or
you that you should be other than you are is
mm,
equally as ridiculous.
mm, mm. Or I live near the sea and I've been watching the sea and thinking it would be like the sea
Yeah,
thinking when the waves are crashing, it would be like the sea labeling its waves crashing as I'm angry or I feel whatever. It's just,
exactly. Yeah,
and
that's
as
that's
you say, you wouldn't sort of stand there and say, stop doing that, calm down. You'd just be like, that's what's happening right now.
mm, exactly. And and so you're at a level, I believe, where you can appreciate that when we apply labels to anything, any kind of naming, labeling, that we're only 50% of the way towards experiencing what it actually is for
Mm,
us. And that labeling is like going up a dead end tunnel. And the label is written on the wall at the end of the blockage, you know, where the tunnel stops. That's the wall, and that label is written on that wall, no matter what it is, a label of a feeling, label of a sensation, label of a thought, label of an emotion, any label, right,
mm,
is a dead end. But there's a doorway in that dead end. It's kind of hidden. You don't, but knowing it's there means you've just got to. It's one of those release doorways where you push it a little bit and it unlocks and
mm,
releases, and then the door swings open and you can walk through. And beyond the label, there are no words, there's no description, there's only experiencing.
mm,
And that experiencing, that experiencing straight through the door, or just on the other side of that blockage, that experience is still a body having an experience. But as you go further in, it gets to a point, it comes a point where experiencing is happening. It's not an experience happening to or by somebody or somebody.
mm,
You know, it's what it becomes is all there is experiencing.
mm, mm,
This is so hard. I really don't. I've been playing with this one, looking for a way to help people to understand this because it's such a big leap from that. And this analogy of metaphor of the tunnel and the blockage, it just occurred now, but it's still hard to
wow,
go.
that was a really good one.
Yeah, just from the doorway to that place where experiencing is all there is, and you get that. It's really weird to say uh, it's all that is, because it's not an it, and all suggests there is less than all,
Mm-hmm.
and there expresses a place, and is expresses existence, and none of those work.
Mm.
And so it's impossible to say. So can you imagine that if it starts out that you experience sound, that at some point the immersion in that sound becomes an ocean that you swim in, and then you become part of the ocean, and then that's all there is. It's not even an ocean anymore. It's an ocean and a sky and a world, and everything is just that experience. So even if we say that's experience of sound, we're going back up.
Yeah. It suggests
Yeah,
there's sort of something other than,
yeah,
yeah. Mm. It's pre-verbal, I guess, isn't it? It's
yes,
pre-language,
absolutely, yes,
because language is symbols and labels, and that's what a language is, I suppose, isn't it?
yes,
It's
absolutely, yeah,
sort of labeling everything, and so it's sort of, it's impossible. You almost need to be able to just like infer it to someone telepathically. It's a sense.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. How can you transmit the taste of orange or chocolate to somebody
Hmm.
who's never experienced it? Well, of course, but in a way, this is not quite so hard, in that everybody does have this experience, but because there's no words or labels involved, it doesn't get put down into memory. It slips by. So it's really a case of remembering, as in joining up, putting that member back on, the arm, the limb, the leg, or whatever, that member, rejoining that memory, remembering.
Because we our first ever experiences must have been, uh,
Exactly this, yes. Yeah,
which is why, well, as I guess in line with what you say, that's why generally we will say that children don't remember anything really before the age of 3, because I guess that's before they have language. And it's,
exactly. Yeah. And so it makes you wonder, how necessary or how integral is language in remembering? So we have to be able to describe an image in order to remember it. Even if it's a non-verbal thing, it's an image, we still have to be able to describe it. That's a trick, isn't it? Yeah. So this is not a place where we can live. It's just knowing of its existence, but knowing of its existence at an experiential level puts everything else in context. We're still going to use language. We're still going to exist at this really. I don't want to. It sounds like I'm putting a value judgment on it when I say it's a superficial level. But I'm not, because it's part of the whole thing as well. So where that fits in a practical way for us is if we recognize that that is an experience that may turn up at some point, our variation of it, then we're open to recognize the cracks in the cosmos, in the universe, in the fabric of time, in the fabric of space. You know, we're open to look around the corner at impossibilities, kind of thing, but just recognizing that that's possible. But it also puts into context all this stuff that we've been trained with. You know, all of these value judgments, all of these likes and dislikes, and recognize that every label comes with a moral undertone. Think about it. It can be a label like green, and you go, you know what? Green feels a lot lighter than black. You know, there's a different feeling about that than that. You know, well, there's just an ordinary label. It's just a colour, you know, and yet it has this moral undertone of being lighter than something else. Yeah, it's crazy. And by recognising that those things are implicit in that, all of a sudden what we do is we hold all of those descriptions that we tell ourselves much lighter. All of a sudden they don't have a heavy meaning. They're in context. They're just up at the surface stuff. And yet we've believed them to be such a big deal that they've integrated into us and got down to a deep level. Right? But it's not really a deep level. It's actually only one level under the surface for a lot of it. Oh, we're talking a lot of metaphor today, aren't we? Yeah.
It's kind of it feels like not the only way, but as you say, it's so hard to explain something in language that can't be put into words. And I guess that's why it's such well, I was going to label it again. But I guess that's why this isn't a place that a lot of people get to in their lifetime, because we're so conditioned. When we start school, we're taught, words, we write stuff down, we're told things, everything must be labeled and quantified, and I come from a world of working in mental health, and everything needs to be measured and quantified and labeled and weighed, and it's kind of like, but you can't. It's not.
Yeah. It all has a place though. But the thing that my experience, and I have a story that, in fact, anybody who ends up in this so-called spiritual investigation is probably also fits this, and that is that right from early days, we felt that there was something wrong, something I would describe it as dehumanizing in what we were taught. And I just thought I was weird, and I just thought I was unusual. But it turns out there's a whole lot of us like that, that had that experience of not feeling good about the way things were laid out for us. Something wrong about it. I kind of reckon that everybody experiences that, but a lot of people dismiss it, and it's not not a big enough deal for them for it to continue and develop into something else. So they're the ones that kind of become obedient to all of that conditioning and so on, which I guess is most of the world.
Mm.
But anyway,
Mm.
but it has a place, and it can't be dismissed as non-existent. It does exist, and we're going to live in that as well. But we
Mm.
don't. But we'll live in two worlds. Kind of is one way to put it. That
Yeah.
we will happily pretend to obey the rules under the right circumstances, uh, even if we think they're wrong and bad and shouldn't be there and so on, because they are there. That's just the way it is. And then when we see all this shit that goes on in the world, we can recognise that that's the result of all those really bad rules. That's the stuff that didn't work.
Mm. Well,
But we can't fix it. We just
no,
have to live with
it,
it. Yeah.
yeah, it's I guess that's the thing, isn't it? It's sort of realizing that that's how it is right now. But I had that realization the other day. I mean, it's I'm sure I'm not the only one, but when you look at um the the most powerful people in the world, they're like scared little children
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
trying to sort of puff themselves up and make themselves look big and tell everyone you need to do what I say.
Yeah.
And in a way, for me, it takes the because I've always felt this as well, and it can frustrate a lot of people because everyone wants to know kind of which political party you ascribe to, or everyone has their say, and I've always had this sense of like, not that it's not important, but it is what it is. Like you said, there's nothing
Mm.
we can really do, but we can in our small way, in our communities, we can try and sort of engage in life in other ways. But it's just people play acting. It's terrified
Yeah.
people
Yeah. And
playing
they
a
have so
game.
much power of doing it as well. Yeah.
Mm.
But
How
there's,
um,
if we step back and adopt what sometimes described as a God view, where you're way so far back that you're seeing the whole world and you're seeing everybody in it, or imagine that you're an alien race in a spaceship observing Earth and observing this stuff going on, uh, putting it into a bigger context. Then the stuff that we see as really, really huge becomes a lot smaller and so on. There's a lot of good stuff goes on in the world that we don't hear about because of the nature of our media and so on. Um, we're in spite of everything in the news at the moment, I think there are now less wars going on in the world than have ever gone on before. There's less disease. We're better off with all sorts of things like uh, malaria, polio, all of those things are way better. So there's a lot of really, really good stuff happening that gets no headlines at all. If you watch the news, you think, oh God, we're on the edge of World War III. Yeah,
well, isn't it interesting how, when I was saying that in my own experience, the thing that has sort of kept me suppressing all of this stuff and tensing and living in this place of fear is the fear of the fear itself, and kind of like I don't want to feel this,
yeah,
and that's what they, whether it's that conscious or not, I'm sure there's an awareness that if you create fear in humans, they'll do what they're told.
yeah,
And
yeah,
will keep them down. And again, the sort of more I realize this, the more, which sounds quite conspiracy theorist, but there's no, in that sense, there's no vested interest in the higher powers of helping, supporting us to become enlightened, because then we don't believe this stuff anymore, or
Yeah,
we.
yeah, we won't be obedient. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's an interesting one with the conspiracy theorist stuff too, and that is conspiracy theorists often build their case, even though they've adopted it more likely than they've built it from ground up themselves. But usually there is some element of of actuality in what they build their conspiracy theories on, and then they go off in these weird tangents and turn it into something else. And so it's like that conspiracy theory that there's a bunch of rich people controlling the world. Well, there is a bunch of rich people controlling the world, but they don't sit around a board table and decide what to do. You know,
Mm,
it's just the way it happens, kind of thing.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and the control is almost accidental because it's where they put their money or don't put their money,
mm.
or you know which mates club they belong to, and consequently
Yeah,
can get things done or not done, you know, or whatever.
yeah. What they invest their money in
Yeah,
and what we then go and
yeah.
buy. And yeah.
Right. So the concept of conspiracy is what's wrong because, well, I mean, I don't know. I might be totally wrong about this, but I don't believe that they actually get together and have a club and say that this is what we'll do in order to have that output. It's just they're all doing what they're doing, and the consequence is that that's the way it seems.
Mm,
You know, but I see it all a bit like I mean, it was a period in my life where I was into naturopathy and natural health and so on, and so there was a big deal put on a thing called a healing crisis. You know, like
mm,
you. So if you get food poisoning, then you start vomiting and get diarrhea, and that's a healing crisis because your body's trying to get the toxins out. Right? And if you get a virus infection, you know, often you'll have a temperature. Well, that's you know, oxidizes the blood and does things to help heal up.
mm,
As long as it doesn't get out of control, it's a
mm,
good thing, even though it's really unpleasant. Well, I see a lot of this shit that goes on in the world as a healing crisis of the world from that way back perspective. I can see it as, you know, I might, you know, and the time frame is really, I mean, I'm 78 this year, and I've been all my life, all my conscious life, thinking things will get better, you know, and it seems like they have, and they haven't. They mostly haven't. But so, you know, maybe it'll take another couple of hundred years. Maybe we'll get down to 1,200 people left on the world before, you know, things start to come good. Who knows? Who knows what's
mm,
going to happen? You know.
mm.
But I
Although
do.
the
Yeah, go on.
planet is incredibly powerful, and the more that I explore this, the more I realize the universe, the and the world that we live in, it knows what it's doing and it's flowing. And my hope is that if and probably when humans completely eradicate themselves, eventually planet Earth will recover. It will be
Yeah,
absolutely.
I go along with that. Yeah, yeah. And if we're so stupid as to decimate ourselves, then that's exactly what will happen. You know, I think they agree. Yeah.
Mm.
So, and we're no more important than a snail or a tree or a wave in the ocean, really. So it's total arrogance to think that, you know, mankind is something special.
Mm. Mm. How do you were talking about sort of equating the two kind of views. You were talking about, the view of um seeing the world for what it is, seeing labels for what they are, language, and sort of observing, and the awareness. And then you were also talking about, which is true at this time, that we also have to kind of drop back in. We have to use that language, we have to use those labels, and we have to play the games. And I imagine again that it's a process. It's a kind of process of just undoing, and it starts to flow. But do you find that there's ways to, like, what I'm finding at the moment is it can generally be a bit all or nothing. Like, either I'm swept up in it and I'm caught up, and then suddenly I'm like, oh God, I've just been hooked up in it all, and then I'm able to step back and look, and then I go back in. But do you find that there's a way to sort of kind of balance the two together, and sort of look at things whilst you're engaging in them?
Yeah, okay. I get your question. Yeah. Yeah. I was almost, I had this idea that I could write a story this morning that would start off with, look, people, I have to admit something to you. I'm a total fraud, right? This thing of about awakening is just a lot of crap. It doesn't exist. There is just, there is just this ordinary everyday life that goes on, and involved in that is eating and shitting and wearing clothes and going to the shops and walking the dog and everything that from the outside looks exactly the same as it does for anybody else. If I look out the front window and see people walking their dog past the house, it is no different. If it were me and they were looking out their front window, it would look exactly the same in a sense to that. What's different now to what used to be the case is that looking at them walking their dog and experiencing this, looking out the window at them and seeing the letterbox and the road and the trees are all the same. There's no difference. So there's kind of almost a mechanical view of people and things and myself now that wasn't there before. When I look at myself, if I look past the image that turns up that says there's a person there, what I see is a bundle of conditioning. And some of it's been deconditioned, but there's still a lot of conditioning there. And that conditioning results in responses. So I frequently say I'm just a response bunny. That's all the only essence of me that exists is in response to what's in my life. I don't think about what I'm going to say. I'll say nothing if I've got nothing to say, nothing to respond to. But if somebody says something, I'll respond to that. Then those words just come out. I have no idea what they're going to be.
Mm.
I went to the shops to get milk, and just before this meeting, and I got they're in little milk cartons, so I got 6 of them, and the lady came at the self checkout and said, "Would you want me to put all those through as one for you?" And I said, "Thank you. Yes." And then I went and got in the car and came home. I don't know why I told you that, but what
I
I'm saying
like
is,
well, that's because
chop
we
wood,
can,
carry water.
yeah, and we can sometimes assume that the games are sort of all of the games we play or the way we engage in the world, that there's something kind of, there's a depth to it or that there's more meaning, but sometimes it is just the mundanity of.
Yeah, but it's also magical. You know, it's not just mundane. There is an amazing. I mean, the what 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 did that woman feel that provoked her to come and offer help to make things easier for me? I mean, that was that almost makes me want to cry with joy. That was beautiful. That was love. You know, that out of for no, it wasn't a duty. She was employed by the shop, but sure, but essentially she wanted to do that. But that wanting, that's an amazing thing, isn't it? It's just beyond it. It's beyond, you know, we can trivialize it, or we can say how absolutely amazingly magical it is. And they're all true. It all just is where you look at it from. So although I said, you know, yeah, we live in two worlds, it's not like they're side by side. It's more like one's inside the other. You know, or it's, you know, it's again, it's it's, do we need to describe it? I don't think we can. You know, it's a tricky one, but yeah. So this I mean, you guys, I really, what I just would just love to be able to just give you this magic pill that showed you that what you've got now, this is all it is. What you're looking for, you've already got. And I know you've already got it, Kat, but yet you feel unfinished. But you're not unfinished. The only thing unfinished about you is the recognition that you're not unfinished, because there is no finish. There is no start, there's no finish, there's no pathway. It is just this, all this. And if we can, oh, this is crazy. So we start with, we look at it and we want to go, it's just this. But when we recognize that it is just this, we don't need to pay any attention to it anymore, because it all just is this. We talk about the shadows or the stuff that's inside us or whatever, like they are a thing that needs to be purged or even just recognized or something like that. But they're not actually things. What they are habitual ways of responding to triggers, circumstance, conditions that are there. I wrote a thing the other day about a predictive brain, you know, and it was just brilliant, you know, what the brain does. I mean, it's a story from our perspective, but it's more than a story from a neuroscientific perspective. But essentially, we've got this amazing brain. You know, if we were to build a computer that had the capacity of the brain, it would take gigawatts of power to run it, and yet our brain runs on 20 watts. You know, it's just so efficient, and it can do so much, and that we can't even we're not even close to having a computer that can do what our brain can do. And what our brain does, it does with a overarching intent to be economical, to save energy, to do things. And part of the way how it's learned to do that is it's predictive, right? So it takes the available circumstances, the sensory input, if you like, and then it adds to that what it's learned, our history of what it's learned, and it does all of that in a fraction of a millisecond, so fast. Out of that, it predicts what it thinks is going to happen, and then it prepares the body for that. Right? So you can see how when people have a fear response, the brain has decided that you've always had a fear response under these circumstances, so that's the appropriate thing, and I'm going to get you ready for it. So here you go, feel fear. And the adrenaline pumps up and all these things happen and the muscles tighten up and the sugar levels change in the blood and all sorts of things go on because the brain expects that's what's going to happen. And it expects it because it's always happened. So this is the stuff that we're looking at changing now. But how do we change it? We recognise that the brain's prediction can be wrong. It's based on history more than anything else. The external circumstances usually, you might say, just trigger our history. And so then we end up with this anxiety or fear or aggression or whatever it is that we do habitually, we end up with that as a result. And is it appropriate? Probably not. Now, that's all we're doing is just recognising our habits and recognising that they can change. So we can give it a new history for its predictive abilities.
Mm.
Old habits are pretty hard to change sometimes. You know, they sometimes they don't need to be changed. It's, you know, so the old habit can come along and present itself, and then it's like, well, okay, I see you, but we don't need to go down that road.
Mm. 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 And what I'm finding is if you remove the label that it's a problem or it's something that needs to be changed, that's really helpful. So for me, I had got myself into a real bind of Mondays. I feel really anxious. I get work anxiety in general, but Mondays it's really bad. So then on Mondays I'm kind of expecting it, and when it comes, I'm fighting it and like, I don't want to feel this, and I've changed everything. And it's a really good example, and I've seen so much through it. I've changed everything: the way I work, the places I work, from working for someone else to working freelance, and nothing's changed it. It's still there. And I'm just through this work starting to realize that and my brain, because it feels like it's just a loop. My brain is like, label Monday, label morning, like you said, right, adrenaline, cortisol, let's do the thing that we do. And now what I'm trying to do is when I notice it, just be like, hey, okay, cool. This is
Yeah. So
fine.
so this is a, useful one then. Put it in context of listen, brain, that prediction is old stuff. It doesn't have to be that way,
Mm.
right? Or you can go, oh, you predicted wrong again.
Mm.
It
It's one of those things,
anticipates.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm certain, and who knows, but I'm certain it probably comes from being at school,
Oh, that's
being
where we started to get it for
yeah,
sure.
and
Yeah.
Monday mornings, because we're told, aren't we? It's a cliche. People don't like Mondays, that Monday feeling, all of those things. So
Yeah.
conditioned.
People celebrate Friday afternoon. Yeah. Yeah.
And the weekend, and um, yeah. And so that's what I'm realizing is you say there's a power in just seeing. Don't try and change, don't try and fix, just see and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see what's happening here. It's fine. It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. It's just that tiny shift from a judgment to curiosity. And then all of a sudden the whole thing is it takes on a different flavor.
Mm,
So because there's nothing right or wrong, right? This is just that mechanistic result of a lifetime of conditioning. Then it's just also just a mechanistic correction.
mm, mm,
So how many times, if you wanted to almost be mathematical about it, you could say, well, it's probably an exponential curve, and how many incidences have to happen before you lose the old habit and develop a new one.
mm, mm.
It's just maths. It's just it's a numbers game. But the
Vince,
more
can I?
you recognise, the faster it happens. Yeah, go on, Jed.
Hey, Vince. Um, I've been getting quite stuck on how to respond to feelings, intensity. Particularly for me, it's fear and anxiety, and I, I've got to a point where I'm thinking, well, I could do this when I could just try and cultivate or bring an attitude of curiosity, which in itself feels like can sometimes feel like I don't know, an effort. Can I do that? A challenge? Or I just go, I'm just allowing this stuff to flow through me. This is just life. Emotions happen. Or I'm like, just go with the direct experience, just really notice the sensation. And I feel like what is becoming more stressful for me is working out, deciding what is the, the the appropriate, the best response, and that's where I'm stuck now. And that in its some, I mean, I guess I got some other bit of conditioning around getting it right, or
Mm.
really wanting to get to some place or something. Um, so yeah, and I guess I keep just kind of moving between. Oh, this is what I'm gonna do. This is my response when I feel
Okay, all
stuff.
right. Yeah. So let's work with that one. Yeah. What would you tell him, Kat? What would comes to mind for you? You know,
Um,
I know you know. What did you hear him say?
well, what I was thinking with all of those responses is with curiosity, just allow them, observe them,
Mm,
um,
right.
rather than engaging in the game that there's a right or wrong one.
You got it. Yep. So can you see what your question was, Jed, was which is the right way to go? And the right way to go is to recognize there's no right way to go. There's no wrong way to go. There's no where to go, right? Because you don't have a choice. you're going to do what you're going to do.
Okay. Well, that in itself I find confusing. Because yes, okay, eventually something happens and maybe I couldn't have done otherwise, but there is a process of
Okay, so
um,
that process, so that's fine. Of course, yeah, there's a process, right? That process is no different to the breeze blowing outside or you breathing or seeing stuff with your eyes or anything like that. It's just what's happening. And so you can go, oh, that process is important because it's going to lead me somewhere. Or you can recognize that that process is just the same as the breeze blowing outside. It's just a happening, right? And
okay,
we call it a process. And if we believe it's going to take us somewhere, well, that's also part of the process. Doesn't make it true. It might be true, but it might not be true. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So everything that happens is just what happens. So having something to worry about is also just part of the process. Unnecessary part, but it's part of what happens to you if it happens to you. And so where are you? You're absolutely helpless. You're in a corner. You can't do a thing. You can't say anything. You can't do anything. You can't move. All you can do is watch or not.
but
And
then
it's all okay.
yeah. So I think this is where I really want to. I don't know. I'm stuck on this idea of just watch it all because we're
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
saying,
So how can you do that?
well, yeah, and you also or I also think act as if you have agency, knowing that you haven't. So you still and you that's right, isn't it? That we kind of act like, you know,
Well, put it
I don't
another
know what
way.
I think. What happens to me is if I try and there's a lot of things I can do where I can just kind of trust my body and just see what arises in my body. Do I go to the right? Do I go to the left? You know. But when it's I don't know when I'm feeling stuff. I'm just going to stay with anxiety because that seems to be the most common one. Um, if I just go, all right, I'm just going to watch what happens, how I respond to this, what unfolds. Yeah, do I ever actually do that?
Mm,
I think I generally get stuck in trying to do something.
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Even if it is just called to just be curious, it still seems like that's a doing.
Yeah. So so what I'm saying is, and this is a really hard one to get because it's so simple that it's easy to overlook, and that is it doesn't matter what what you do, what you think, what you feel. It all is just what is there at the moment, right? And as soon as you can just get that there is no point in thinking about it unless you do, which case it's also just that from that perspective, you will see it differently. Right? But
Yeah,
see, this is a trap because now you're going to want to get it to that perspective so you can see it.
but I think we've
Before
got
you
the main bit there.
arrived, Jed, I was saying how you sort of we were joking that you kind of end up with layers upon layers upon layers of noticing and stories, and there's the kind of like oh, because anxiety would be the to label it is the big feeling that I experience and have really struggled and fought with. And so now there'll be the kind of the step now is, rather than just getting hooked into the anxiety, it's like, oh, I'm noticing I'm anxious. I need to step away from this. And then I'm like, oh, I'm noticing that I'm trying to step away with real tension. And I sort of keep noticing. And I sense, I don't know if this is what you're saying, it's like, when can you get to the point where you're sort of like, I'm out, I'm tapping out of this, rather than engaging in another story around it, or how you should be.
I know that process that you're describing. Yeah, I certainly am familiar with that, and that happens. I think where my mind's going now is the idea that there really is no right or wrong, and that there's no good or bad, or I mean, I'm questioning that as I say it, but I think because I've got this now, I've got this project to awaken and to dissolve the remnants, whatever it is, and to get to a place where it's more pleasant. that seems really important, and I think that's where I'm going. Yeah, but I might be doing this wrong, and it's not helping my journey. So I've got to do the thing that is going to help my journey, and that's where my anxiety is these days, I think.
The sense that there's a right or wrong way to do it, and to channel Vince, I would say that, or what I picked up on there, which I totally get, and I have spent so many years doing this, is you said something like, I've now got this project, and the question would be, who has got it, and what is the project, if there just is. And for me, it's almost, I think where I've got to is kind of like and I was thinking this, Vince, kind of talking about how I felt, because last time there was a real sense of mourning when I was here. I was describing to a friend, it went quickly from, this is all there is, to like, oh, this is all there is. And I feel like I've got through that, and now I'm like, do you know what, I'm tapping out, I'm not playing this anymore, this is all there is, and I'm just gonna lie back and see what happens. A real undoing, because I used to use the words like, I'm doing the work, and I've got this project, and I remember someone saying to me, like, you're not, you aren't a project, you're just an entity experiencing life. And so I wonder if the language is still linked to the rules of, there's a project, there's a way to do this, there's an end goal, rather than like, right now is all there is, and then now, and then now. But it's very easy to sit here and say that when you're not experiencing it in the same way, I guess.
I mean, I've kind of moved in and out of that way of being, and then I get sucked into the project way, and I think I just need to keep being reminded of the things that you're saying.
A lot of that is just being reminded, for sure, yeah. Well, I would say, whether look, I was a seeker for 45 years. Hear me, get that. 45 years I was an obsessive seeker looking to get enlightened. For 45 years. That's a long time. Well, I think it is. It doesn't feels like 3 minutes now, but nevertheless, So I get it. I know what you're going through. I know, or like, at least I know my version of what you're going through. Yeah. But what I know now Look, give up. Just give up. Don't stop. I mean, let's put it this way. We can have a story that says it's if you're not on the path, if you're not seeking, let's call that wrong. Okay, let's put an obvious conceptual, not real label on it, right? That you're not on the path, so you're not going to wake up. So that's bad. That's wrong, right? The other alternative is you are on the path because you are seeking, you are here at these meetings, you are doing other stuff, so you're on the path. That's right. That's good. You don't have to then get into, oh, is there a better path or a not good path or a better way of doing this or not, right? The fact that you're on the path is all there is. And on the path will be there until it's not. And so get this, not that it's going to happen like this for you, but after 45 years of searching and seeking and reading everything I could get my hands on, tell you what, I was obsessive. Back in those days, you'd order a book and it would cost you $100 and you'd wait 3 months for it to turn up, and then you'd devour it, you'd read it 5 times. Right? And after 45 years of that kind of stuff, one sentence was what woke me up. One sentence happened. Now, I don't know what's going to be for you, but it's the same thing. And when I look back, I go, well, did I waste that 45 years? No, no. I recognise that every minute of that 45 years was necessary because that's what put me in the right position for that sentence to work. So you can't do it wrong. It's not possible to do it wrong. You're doing it, enjoy it. You're doing it right. If you're doing it, you're doing it right.
So you don't think there are like dead ends or like, I don't know.
No, I don't think there are dead ends. I used to think, well, some people just give up, but nobody gives up. If you're on this path, you can't give up. It's not possible. You can go away, you can not read the books, you can not watch the videos, you can not attend the meetings anymore, but it's still going on inside you. Because what we're talking about here is something fundamentally human. We're not talking about gaining anything.
So what's going on inside you then?
A constant reorganization. Everything that you think is bad or wrong isn't. It's all there with your best interest at heart. When you're feeling anxiety or depression or any of that kind of so-called negative stuff, it's trying to look after you. Right? When you've got no energy, it's your brain doing labor saving devices, energy saving.
But that's the same with people who are on the path or not on the path, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's going on in somebody who's on the path that's different? What's going on?
Well, there's a reorganization happening that is in a particular direction, if you might put it that way. Right? Whereas if they're not on the path, that they're going in circles most likely because they're just going to reinforce what they already do. Whereas, so I have this really interesting story that says, and I've had this forever, I used to think about it with songs, when people wrote songs, and I used to think, nobody ever has a genuine, original creation. Everything that's created is based on something that already exists, right? Or multiple things that already exist. And it's like that with our experience. We can only experience what we already know, yet we do experience new things, but they're still based on previous experiences. and it's a new combination, if you like, of things that show us things.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Now, when you've got a history of anxiety,
just gonna go. I'm just plugging in. Going batteries.
yeah,
Computer's
sure.
about to die.
So I don't know, you probably hadn't arrived yet when I was mentioning to Kat that this thing, I wrote a thing today, or not today, a couple of days ago, about the predictive brain. And one of the things, I listened to this woman, neuroscientist, and she was talking about emotions. And that was a really eye-opener for me, but it confirmed what I kind of believed, but it put it into scientific perspectives. And one of the things is that the predictive brain takes not only current sensory input as part of its evaluation of what's going to happen, but history. And history is a huge part of what it takes to make up the prediction of what's going to happen. And so when you get certain conditions arise for you, your brain comes to the conclusion that, oh, I felt depressed under these circumstances before, or I've got anxious under these circumstances before. And so what it does is it readies your body for that. And it does all of the things to produce the very thing that it thinks is going to happen. And so what we're about with this is changing those predictions. Right? But we're fighting an uphill battle with the fact that we've got a history of certain things that make that the most likely outcome for the predictive brain to come up with.
So let me just bring that idea in. So we're we're trying to change the habit of the brain, the body brain, assuming that X situation is going to lead to Y situation or something.
Absolutely, assuming, yes, big time, yep.
So is that something I need to do? Is that something I need to remember? Or
Well, let's put it this way: your brain tells you what it's already decided. It doesn't go the other way around.
right. But it is. I mean, so what do we do with that then? That idea, like just it just
Recognize
goes into the brain and
possibilities.
we don't. Sorry.
Recognize possibilities is a big one.
Yeah.
You can
So I
see,
guess I'm
if you can see that the intent of this, let's call it a mechanistic process that goes on, that the intent of it, and again, this is obviously a story, but the intent of it is to look after you. The intent of it is to achieve what it can achieve with the minimal usage of energy. That's a big part of how the brain works. It's all an energy saving device, and it wants to get there in the easiest way. So we have habits. You don't have to think about tying your shoelaces or buttoning your shirt because that would take energy to think about it. So you do it without thinking, and that's your brain saving energy. So arriving at these conclusions about, oh, well, you're going to be depressed now because in the past that's always happened, is an energy saving thing. But it's misguided, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got good intention, but it's misguided. And so what we're about is retraining it. And again, that immediately takes us to then what do we do to retrain it? Well, just recognizing that it's not inevitable. What it thinks is inevitable is how we're going to retrain it. So it's possibilities. So a much maligned but very powerful process is imagination. Now, I've told this story before, but it's a great one. And I heard this one must have been 20 years ago now, and it was in a Psychology Today kind of magazine or whatever, this article, and it was about a basketball team, and they did this experiment with it where they divided the basketball team, and half the basketball team were instructed to spend 10 minutes a day shooting hoops from the other end of the basketball court, right? They just spent 10 minutes shooting hoops after hoop after hoop after hoop after hoop. The other half of the team were instructed to sit on the sideline, close their eyes, and imagine themselves shooting hoops, right? And at the end of some time, I don't remember how long it was, but at the end of a few weeks or something, they tested them. And the ones who were shooting hoops had improved 10%, and the ones who sat on the sideline and imagined it had improved 30%, right? And it's easy to see that the ones who imagined it never missed a hoop. But the ones who are actually doing it, they only got a certain level of success. They got better at it, but they still missed a few. You know, the power of imagining, right? Here's another story with that power of imagining. In 1997, they discovered I had bowel cancer, right? So they did an operation on me really quickly. They found it on the Friday, and on the Monday I was in hospital getting it out, and it was the size of a grapefruit. It was through the bowel wall. It was in the fatty tissues, but the lymph glands had not yet picked it up and spread it. Wow, how lucky was I, right? Then had a 6-month course of chemotherapy, but on the 5th month, I was so depressed, I said to the oncologist, I said, what's the value of having this last month? And he said, there'll be 1% better chance that you won't get it back within 5 years. And I said, well, fuck that. I'm not having it because this is really depressing. You know, I got to the point where on the way to the hospital for chemotherapy, I'd vomit because I felt so bad, you know. Anyway, he said, all right, so go and have a colonoscopy. We haven't had one yet. We want you to have a colonoscopy. So I went off and I had a colonoscopy a few days later. And they said, we've got good news and bad news. The good news is the bad news is that your bowel is riddled with polyps and we want to take the rest of it out. They'd removed 1/3 of my bowel. And then the good news is that the last inch near your anus is clear, so you won't have to have an ostomy bag, but you better not get too far away from a toilet. Right? So I said, okay, well, book me in for another colonoscopy in 6 weeks and we'll see what happens. And I had a thought, and then they booked me in, and it was 10 weeks before I got the next colonoscopy. So what I did was I booked myself into an ashram up in the Belgian Valley, and I did yogic cleansing and yoga nidra and meditation, and I had a period in my career where I was a hypnotherapist as well. So I used self-hypnosis, and what I imagined was a team of about 50 tiny little men in high-vis vests running around with high-pressure water sprayers cleaning the inside of my bowel, right? And not only were they cleaning it, but the pressure of the water sprayers was promoting my blood flow, and it was all a healing thing. And I did that for 10 weeks, went back and had another colonoscopy, and the surgeon said, we must have made a mistake because I can't find a polyp.
Wow.
Right? That was a life changer for me. Right? But that shows you the power of imagination. It's a practical, experiential proof for me that's powerful stuff. Right? So when I say to you, the possibilities are what we're looking at to bring about change. It's substantial. It's not just words. recognizing the possibilities is what will do it.
May I say something?
Of course.
Because for me, it's like Vince is flooding, get is flooding you with ideas and stories, and that may be much, but well, what came to me shortly is, can you recognize a prediction when it happens? Not always, sometimes.
I don't know. I guess I would say you have a feeling about it. It has a flavour. I guess that doesn't mean anything, but it might or might not come true.
That was a question to get.
Oh, it's Jed, yeah.
Jed, sorry.
So when you say prediction, do you mean, say, if I have an idea that something is going to happen? That kind of prediction?
Yeah, a fear, anxiety. You recognize it as prediction, a brain making prediction.
Yes, I can recognize that. So, for example,
Good.
say I
do that. That's it.
What do you
Do
mean?
the positive ones, not the negative ones, not the predictions that you're going to get depressed.
No, it's the first step is just recognizing, and then let it do what it does. You may thank your brain for making predictions and trying to keep you safe. Sometimes it's it can give you better mood, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, so
I think this is the first step, recognizing, because well, if we believe our predictions, then we're stuck.
Yeah, it's often easier to believe a negative prediction than a positive prediction, eh?
Oh, I guess both are very misleading.
So you're saying, notice when a prediction arises and just recognize that that's just an idea, just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one too. So if you can notice that it's almost not quite the right word, the prediction, but it is a prediction. But if you can notice the expectation that a negative state is going to turn up, that in particular, you can immediately look at it from a wider perspective and go, well, it's not inevitable.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm all right with those things for some reason. But my mind just keeps coming back to this. I've not integrated what you're saying, and I'm going to go back and listen to what you've said, because I've already asked you the same question today. But something won't go in
Yeah.
around.
Okay, I get that. I get that, and that's a big one too, and they're the kind of things that they're like that they're your sentence, that thing that you. So what I'm suggesting that you look for is what's blocking some of those ideas from having an effect, from landing, if you like, from hitting home, or however you want to put it, from becoming significant for you. You might find, right, my intuition tells me that one of those things that you're going to find is this idea of control.
Vince
You're
is
gonna,
making predictions right
I
now.
am, yes, yeah. I don't know that it's true, but I'm just saying that's what comes to mind for me, and that is that because of the emphasis that you've put on wanting something to do, I want to do this and I want to do it right, and I've got to, am I doing it? Is it the right thing or the wrong thing to do it, right? That's a case of Jed having control. And when you feel, when you're locked into that control, all of these things that we talk about that are based on just this, just happenings, not control, they get repelled. They bounce off. You know, your belief in a controlling Jed is like your shield that you use to deflect those things, or something like that. What I'm saying is, yeah,
It's I can't get my head round, and maybe you're right. I like what you're saying, and I'm gonna do that. But it seems like there's a contradiction between, there's no control, and try this, try that.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
There is a contradiction. Yeah, yeah. So when I say
I
try
can't make
this and
sense of
try
it.
that, I'm not. I'm. I know it sounds like I'm saying do it, do this, do that, by try this, try that. But I recognise that that's you can or you can't. You know, it will or it won't happen. But that what I'm saying to you is these are possibilities. There are possibilities. If you accept the possibility that that will happen, I mean, I could
Okay.
maybe be a bit more
Yeah, mm,
what we call the advaita cop and be careful about my language. Maybe, yeah. Go on, Bianca.
uh, yeah, I wanted to say one additional advice: to not treat it like a task. But now I must spot every prediction that happens because it's not possible. And we can say that something was said and idea was planted in your brain, and because of idea was planted, you will probably be noticing more predictions happening. Not you, your brain.
Yeah, yeah. That's a
You
good way to
know
put it. Yeah,
that this idea planted is something that happened, and it will have consequences and so on.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The
But
consequences,
see,
But
what I often have
it's
is
very yeah.
is I think I get not all of them, but several of them will come to mind at the same time in a situation, and I mean I think what, and then I'm like, oh no, which one to do? And I suppose in that moment, would you say just let go and just see what happens? And if there's
yeah,
fear about getting it right or wrong, then just let that happen as well. And
yeah, exactly. So change the language just a little bit, and instead of saying let go and see what happens, right? Because that's based on the illusion that you can do that. that you can let go. You've got enough control to be able to let go. Well, that's a that's a that's a with the cat in the box problem, isn't it? No, you can't do that either. You know, but so let's change it to say,
But you can try. Don't believe Vince. Try
yeah,
to do it.
yeah.
Try to do it and see for yourself. Can you do it or not?
See if it happens, and if it
Yeah.
happens, you can take credit for it and say, "Oh, I did that." But what I would like to see happen, and this is another seed we plant, and hopefully it will sprout, is that at some point you will recognise that it does just happen, and that the mind follows and says, "I did that." Now that's not a trivial thing. If that happens, then all of a sudden the whole idea of whether I did it or didn't do it is no longer a prime issue. Yes, Tammy, speak up. No worries.
Thanks. I had a question for after you guys are finished.
Okay, I'll come back to you then.
Okay.
So what's coming to mind here is, yeah, the illusion of control, I suppose. Yeah, I guess I just need to keep watching and noticing and see if I do have any control.
Hmm. Yeah, it's only a big deal until it happens, and then it becomes not a big deal at all. It becomes a secondary thing. Yeah.
It being, what do you mean by it in that?
Say that again.
What do you mean? What's the it you're referring to there, Vince?
The recognizing that things just happen. See, the idea that we control things, it's not really just about that we control things. What it's really about is that I am someone who can control things. So I am someone is identification. And that's the really big thing. So are we going to let go of being someone when we let go of the idea that we have control? So it's much, much bigger than it appears. It's not just about control. But you've only got to think about all of the things that you intend to do that don't actually happen to realise that it only happens sometimes like you think it's going to happen. And then when it does, you take credit and you can imagine that it happens all the time like that, but it doesn't. Because there's a million things you intend to do that never work out, eh? You get diverted on the way to them.
Yeah. But do 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 you think that we have like any input whatsoever into what happens? Obviously, there's a million other factors.
Yes, I do. So you could say that, all right, a happening occurs because of all of this is looking backwards at it in the, like hindsight. You can say that a happening occurs because all of the conditions necessary for it to occur were present and lined up in the right way. And that was the reason why it happened. And when we talk about this kind of stuff, always some of those conditions are ones that we contribute. It might be our intention, or it might be our feeling of involvement or how much energy we've got or all sorts of, but they're some of the infinite number of conditions that are involved, but they are involved for sure.
And of course, they are all conditioned as well. They're all
Yes,
results of
every
different sort
condition
of...
relies on its own conditions. Yes. So that's where it gets incredibly complex, you know. And so by the time you get down to 3 conditions, you've actually got, you know, each condition has its own conditions, and each of those have their own, and each of those have their own, and you're already up to about 5 million things by the time you get down to 3 layers. So it's incredibly complex. Yeah. But see, this is only an issue until it's seen. The moment it's seen, you can forget about it. That's when you go to behaving as if you've got control, because you know you haven't, and so it's not an issue any longer. Right? So forget about that behaving as if you've got control until you recognise that you haven't. And it's only that you don't even need to think about it. Once you recognise that you haven't, forget it. It's done and dusted. No longer becomes an issue at all. Because you approach things in a much more relaxed way. Right? There's no moral judgment about doing things wrong if you haven't got control. There are consequences, but there's no right or wrong involved. It's all mechanistic. We're scared that robots are going to become like humans, but I tell you what, we'd do a lot of good stuff if humans could be more like robots. All right, let's move over to Tammy. What's your question, Tammy?
Thanks. Yeah, when I came on, you were just in the middle of a story about rinsing your bowels or some such thing. And I don't know the beginning, but you said something about imagination. So my first question is, I've been diagnosed with something in my digestive system, and I have, in general, a lot of pain and inflammation. And my question has always been my entire life, because I wasn't diagnosed for many years. My question was, you know, what is real? In other words, do you think that there's actual illnesses? Is it all in our minds? How much control do we have over it? Like, because I can also get in denial of having it. It's all very confused in my mind and muddled. So, for example, in the past few weeks, I've discovered these non-duality type talks, and I've been attending some of them, and they've had like a deep effect on my day to day. I try to remember certain things during the day, and then like my body will relax. One of my main issues is like extreme tension in my mind and my body. So sometimes I'm able to get into these very deep places where I'm like, okay, and now this, now accept this, now accept this. And it's like just dropping in all the time. But then like I get into states where I still seem like I can't. So like last night, I was up all night in tremendous pain, and my whole body was clenched and contracted. And I just wasn't able to get out of it or accept it or open up to that amount of pain and tension. And just I go back into the old swirls of why is this happening and why can't I release it and all kinds of stuff like that. So I don't know, I guess if you have anything to say about those two questions, if there's anything helpful or useful, or if I should just be like, oh, well, there's no control, there's no doer, there's nothing I can do. I just have to like take it. This is life. Or is there anything useful I can say or do about my thoughts about whether, I can fully heal from something diagnosed, or in general about tension states and pain states that seem to come on, dropping into this to reality and somehow, I don't know, somehow being freer and more at ease. In other words, am I looking to be able to I mean, I am looking to be able to not have those time kind of things where, you know, for whatever hours and hours straight, if not days straight, I'm stuck in pain and tension and confusion and like can't like find a way out or find any ease in it. And is there anything, or is like only if I finally realize like that I'm no self or whatever the realization is, that will end, or it won't end, but I won't care anymore because I won't identify with it. I don't know if there's anything useful or helpful we could say along the way, whether or not I ever become fully realized, or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I get your question and where you're coming from. Yeah. Yeah. It's complex. Well, I certainly would not advise you to say that you can heal this with your imagination. I mean, obviously my experience with my polyps was that they went away after I did what I did, but there's no guarantee. I mean, here I am carrying 8 kilos of belly fat more than I would like to carry, and I can't get rid of it. So I'm no perfect example of using your mind to do everything, but I do say that it is very powerful and very important. And I wonder if, see, the difference with bowel cancer and losing the rest of my bowel is that's a bit like a near-death experience. That's a lot different to losing some fat off my belly. So maybe if it was threatening my life, I would be able to do that. I don't know about that. I don't know, but I would say certainly if you were to employ the same techniques that I did, it certainly would not hurt. It would not be a negative, and the chances of it being a positive are probably fairly good, depending on how you do it, depending on the quality of your imagination. So I loved the idea that you could imagine a team of 50 tiny little workmen running around in high-vis vests, doing healing things with your you say your stomach, with your digestive system or whatever, wherever the problem is. And if you did that obsessively, and I did, when I did that 10 weeks, I did that all day, every day. My whole waking time was doing that. Excuse me. But just meditating, for example, would also be a good thing to do. Again, it depends on how you do it, but the more physically relaxed your body is, the more that will promote your own body's healing mechanisms, your immune system doing its job. I would definitely be involved with the medical system, as imperfect as it is. They are particularly good at diagnosing things. They have the machinery, the equipment to diagnose things, so they can do X-rays and they can do MRIs and CT scans and all that kind of stuff, so they can know about improvements. So I would definitely keep involved with them. I wouldn't dismiss that as something to be done. I would use painkillers if the pain was to the point where that was something that would be helpful for you. I definitely would do that. I personally don't take painkillers for a headache, although I very rarely get a headache. But if I get a headache, I'm much more likely to go and have a sleep, and that usually fixes it rather than take a painkiller. But that's just me. But if you're in severe pain, then the tension in your body from that pain is not going to be helpful for you. So I'd say a painkiller would be appropriate to do. I forget about waking up as a way of fixing this. But having said that, if you were to wake up, this is much more likely. It would be a better circumstances on the body for healing than not being awake. But having said that, a lot of people who wake up way more than I'm awake still get sick. So, you know, there's no guarantee about that. Those things can happen. But certainly the reduction in suffering that comes from waking up is going to be advantageous in terms of your body healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about what I've said.
Yeah. No, that's all great. And actually, I was diagnosed several years ago after like many years of just pain and inflammation, like not knowing what was going on. And so for many, many years, my whole thing was like, I was told, oh, it was like insinuated, oh, it must be like, just relax. You know what I mean? You're just
Yeah.
kind
When
of
they
thing.
don't know what to do, they say that. Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I tell myself till this day. It's so hard for me to differentiate. Like all last night, I could have taken a painkiller and gone to sleep, but I was telling myself it's like a character flaw. Like I'm just tense or I'm not relaxed. And I ended up being like this all night. And this morning I finally slept a couple hours and woke up in tremendous pain and tension. It's hard for me to differentiate what's like a body thing, what's a psychological thing, what's a mind thing, what's just like a character flaw that I'm not able to relax. Like I'm so confused with all the things that arise. And I guess what's still left, I've done a ton of work on also my mindset, also my food, also my stuff, and like I've to get off those medications and to avoid like really bad stuff. But there still seems to be some systemic inflammation or something going on that flares up all the time. And then there's this tension that, you know, people will say, oh, that's just, you know, you need to relax. But it's beyond that. There's some voluntary tension that can go away with stuff, but then there's other stuff. And yet sometimes when I, you know, attend these talks in the past few weeks, I'm able to just like sit with it, be with it, and sink into the pain. And then something does relax. But
Yes.
then there's
Yeah.
nights like last night where I can't do it. I can't sink into it on my own, into that level of pain and tension. And then the mind goes crazy with, is this psychological? Is this physical? If it's physical, how can I go further and heal it? Because that's what I did for 8 years since my diagnosis. I was like, okay, how can, when something would arise, instead of going to hospital and being given like chemo type medication, like that's horrible on you, I was like, okay, how can I take this further without that? Like if I was forced to, you know, if it's that or this, what can I do further in my lifestyle and food and my sleep and my movement? And so I kind of like, I've exhausted that after 8 years of that. I'm like, okay, I've gotten my food where it's going to go. I've got my mind, like I kind of feel, but I think this is my next step for me of this non-dual stuff. I just want to reach a deeper understanding and maybe a deeper freedom and relaxation in the body and mind, because I feel like I also take care of my nephew a lot. And before that, I helped raise my siblings in a lot of chaotic environments. And I feel like my whole system is very, very revved up. And I feel like I have kind of gotten to a place where I'm good enough with my behavior. In other words, I behave okay to people, but now I realize underneath there's some kind of existential fear and hypervigilance and kind of terror and discomfort and tension that even though outwardly I can be very polite, that's what I'm also transmitting, that underlying tension. And so that's what I'm kind of here to solve. So I sometimes find myself able to sink in and be like more relaxed than I've ever been, and walk on the street with less hypervigilance and less fear and terror, and not walk into my house and immediately look at all the windows, but just like walk in and look down at something. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I'm not living in terror. But then like I get whipped last night and I'm not even sure if it was physical or emotional. So I don't know if you have anything
Yeah,
to say about how to continue to progress in this. Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that I believe there is no difference between the physical and psychological, right? So they're the same thing. So I wouldn't separate those, and I certainly wouldn't consider the judgment that goes with that being psychological and not with it being physical. Now, that's a ridiculous thing that society has put on all of us. That says, oh, well, you've just got to learn to control yourself and you'll be okay. Rubbish. It's rubbish. People that say that don't do it. So, yeah, whether it's psychological or physical, no difference. I wouldn't even give that another thought. Right? It's there. That's what it is. Full stop. You've got it. So, and what you've got is your interpretation of your experience. Right? So it is your experience and it is what it is, but recognizing that it is what it is in its flavor because of the way you see it. Right? And the way you see it determines what you feel about it as well. Right? So now we do kind of move into that waking up space a little bit. That I'd be inclined to kind of not. Well, this my own story. Is that I'm not particularly enamored about the non-dual stuff. It's it has a place, I guess, but I don't. I've. Well, this is a tricky one. I'm not meaning to put it down. I'm just saying. I think that the people who talk about non-duality, it's a bit religious from my way of thinking. It relies too much on belief and faith, and it's too fragile as a result of that. But anyway, but it's so anyway. So what I'm saying is that there are a whole lot of we are as people we are the result of a lifetime of conditioning. And that's really what needs to be changed in order for us to have different experiences. And that's really what we're talking about. So we're not talking about something spiritual. We're talking about something very human in that way. So that's really, and by recognizing some of the things that come with this stuff, for a start, if you recognize that there is no self in there running the show, then based on that illusion, you also recognize that there's nobody that has control, therefore there's nobody that can be doing it wrong. And so consequently, there's a whole lot of relaxation that comes from that, or rather we lose a whole lot of tension in life and we start to see things in a much more, I don't know how to put it, in a nicer way. And that's all conducive to better health. The more stress we live in, the harder it is for our immune system to cope. That's pretty basic stuff. But there's no wonderful perfection now. There's no walking on water. There's none of that magic stuff that we once believed in. Doesn't happen. It never happens. But there is definitely some rather wonderful and magical experiences to be had when we can get past the old ideas that society has conditioned into us.
Yeah. And so if I have these and I didn't necessarily mean non-dual. I meant like talks like this. Maybe I use strong terminology, but I guess I see it all as the same thing, trying to
Sure.
come to
Yeah.
something. But I appreciate your input anyway. But I guess so. I've just been finding like taking on some of these ideas and trying to like look at them during the day. I found like a deep relaxation, but then like there's other times where this shows up, like last night, of incredible tension that I can't seem to sink into
Yeah.
or out of. And it's like, do you think that, in other words, that graduality and perseverance, like keeping on coming, keep on trying to do this, is that a good way? In other words, to keep on attending things, to keep on thinking, like, giving myself little cues throughout the day to explore this or that. Is that a good way to come to a
Yeah.
deep realization? Or am I fooling myself that it's happening? Or like, is it just like meeting nice people can put me into a deep state of relaxation? Or do you think there could be progress happening and perhaps understanding? In other words, if I've never like crossed over the gate or whatever it is there still a deepening that's possible and valuable, whether or not it ever happens? And could I be on the path, or am I not? I don't know, like any way to gauge if, I guess, this is worthwhile, and if any change is happening, and if there's any value to keep on persevering and searching and listening to different people and trying to implement.
Yeah, well, my experience says that you don't have any choice about that. If you're on the path, you're on the path, and that's the way it is. And once you're on the path, you can't really get off it again, depending on, I guess, how far you've been on it, how far. So once you've discovered even one thing, you're going to keep at it. So if you've seen improvements in yourself as a result of what you've been listening to or what you've been attending or what you tell yourself, then that keeps you going, doesn't it?
Yeah. I guess I'm just afraid, like I get very afraid when I start on new paths that like I'm deluding myself, or like it's not going to work, or it's just like beginner's luck or something, and like I'll be disillusioned and it won't work. But
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Um, yeah, what I would say is it's probably way better to not chop and change, like some people, and I'm not accusing you of this, I don't know about you, but some people will kind of start a whole lot of things, start something and then very quickly change to something else and start that and then change to something else and so on, constantly looking for something that they don't find, but they don't ever stay with anything long enough to actually experience what value it might have. So I'd say chopping and changing is not something I'd advise you to do. Whatever you do, stay with it until you experience it or lose faith in it having any value for you. Um, there's a multitude of paths. There's in many different ways you can get into this. One thing that strikes me, it's an interesting one, and that is that the self-improvement um, movement or community or whatever, however you want to put it, the self-improvement thing uh, can have a certain value, but it's not going to wake you up. It's always going to. It's simply you're just going to have a better version of yourself, and that can have a good effect depending on how far you want to go. But when you come to this kind of thing, then we're talking about not a self-improvement, but a self-disintegration. Well, I don't know how you would put it, but recognizing that there's no self running the show. And that's recognizing it. It's not actually believing it. It's just recognizing what a self actually is, that it's actually made up a whole lot of stories that you've learned about yourself and that you respond to as if they're real. And that's where a lot of the problems come from. So that's the value in that side of it. So, But even so, having said that, some people who just get on the self-improvement stuff can get to where they have a very happy life. That's. But so I would ask you this question: if I was to say, if you were to ask me, should I go on a self-improvement binge or should I look to wake up? I would say, when you were a kid, how old were you when you realised that you were different to most of the other kids at school? Did that happen for you?
That I was different than most of the other kids.
Yeah. Did you have that thought at some stage?
I realized I'd looked at things differently than my family, my parents, my friends. Like I didn't say everything about my internal experience. I think I was 8.
Yeah. Okay. So, but you looked at things differently. All right. So here you go. This is what I would say is, right, you belong in this family. You're a weirdo like us. Right. So this is the family that where you belong.
Mm-hmm.
If you were one of the mainstream and you were quite happy about that, but you just wanted to get better, then I would say go and find a good self-improvement thing to do and do that. But if you recognise that you were different to the mainstream, then this is the way to go for you, because everybody that's here doing this kind of stuff has that realization at some stage when they're a kid that they don't see things the way the rest of the world did.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I would, sit on my bed and I would have a list that I need to think about. You know what I mean? Like, what is this world? What is God? What is wanted of us?
Yeah,
Like these, I would just sit and think. Like I'd never heard of meditation or anything like this, but I called it my thinking list. So
yeah. So what
and these are
8-year-old
things I
does that,
couldn't tell
eh?
anyone because right. So I couldn't tell anyone because they would be like, "What?" or "Where?" Like I wouldn't get a
Exactly. Yeah.
response. So I was like, "Okay, that's just between me and the universe or God or whatever." But
Yep.
yeah. So if that's what you mean, then
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're in the right place for that, because that's for sure. That's very familiar to the people here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in other words, but there's no like guarantee of waking up, but you still think it's valuable to search, or you're saying there's no choice. I'm already searching since I'm 8. So like,
Absolutely, yeah, that's right, yeah, and there's definitely no guarantee. But if you're looking, and if you're looking for something, and it's good if you're obsessive about that.
mm-hmm,
It'll happen, you
mm-hmm,
know. But as you say, there's no guarantee it'll happen or not. But even if for those who it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that there's not some shift into a better place.
mm-hmm. So being obsessive about it won't be detrimental, you think,
No, no, absolutely not.
and that it can be positive rather than frustrating, even if I don't reach certain understandings.
Yep. But we're not talking about actual understandings. That's just the language thing. Um, so we're talking about having different experiences.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And you would say just attend meetings and then try to get clues from there to work on, or is there anything else? Like, what homework can you give me?
Yeah. Okay. Look, you know what? One of the things I would suggest might be a good thing for you to consider, and that is um, go to liberationunleashed.com and register there and wait for a guide to pick you up, and they will start to take you through that the stream entry. The way the Buddhists put it is a stream entry. So that'll get you on the path, in a much more certain way. So having a guide is a good value in that we fool ourselves too easily. So, but if you've got a guide, if you're working, but I would also say definitely keep coming to these meetings. The fact that you found this meeting is pretty amazing in itself. So because you're here, and you can ask yourself, does this feel right for you? Does it resonate? The stuff we talk about, does it make sense to you? If it does, then you're in the right place. If you think we're full of shit, then you're not probably in the right place.
And aside from a guide, is there anything you can give me to look at for this week?
Uh, I, I
Or it
resist
doesn't
that.
really work like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Like when tension arises, or when I get stuck in like jaw clenching, or when something is not right with the world, anything to look at to get deeper than that, or
Yes. All right. Okay. Well, there are certainly things that we can do there with those things. Um, right. So here's where I would start. I would say I would like you to recognize, and just saying it isn't necessarily going to do it. So although I talk about this stuff like I'm giving you things to do, right? Recognize that what they are seeds that I'm planting, and hopefully they will sprout. And some may do and some may not. And the ones that don't, well, we'll just keep throwing them out until they do. But whatever you persist, we'll get there. But so when I'm saying these things, they're possibilities, always just possibilities. They're not instructions as such. So if you can see them in that light, it's helpful, right? So what we're talking about is an attitude towards this stuff. So all right. So what I would say to start with, I would say a feeling or an emotion, tricky stuff, is sensations with stories hanging off it. So if you can just imagine that you've got physical sensations, and then you've got stories about those sensations, and then you've got stories behind it that actually trigger these things as well. So don't get too carried away with that, but just recognize that there are two components to whatever you're feeling. There is the physical sensation, and then there are the stories about it. So if you can, the first thing I would do is whenever you're feeling, is I would disregard the label that you might put on it, what you would call it, and go straight away to the sensation in the body and focus really, really intensely on what that sensation is, where it is, what are its characteristics. Is it moving? Is it expanding and shrinking? Does it have a color? Does it have a heat? Right? Really, really, really focus in on all of the different characteristics of it. And then when you've immersed yourself in that to the point where you think you're feeling it fully, then dismiss all of the labels that you've discovered that focus you in certain ways, and try to experience the sensation beyond labels. Really, really become so intimate with the sensation that it is just it's a moving happening in the body. And by getting that close to it, what will happen is that you will get out of your head about it, and you'll stop amplifying the situation with your mind, and you will find that even if you started to call it pain, at the level that we're talking about, the word pain doesn't work anymore, because it'll have certain characteristics that are amorphous. it'll change, it'll shift, it'll have heat and color, and all of this is you getting your mind as close to as possible to what the feeling is, and then you dismiss the mind and you're just the feeling, and you become the feeling. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I really do, yeah, because what happens is it's like last night, I'm like, there's so much pain, there's so much tension. And then the mind is like, oh God, you have to get out of this because you have to fall asleep. And then I'm like, well, is this a character flaw and I'm just being like unrelaxed and like
Yes,
hypervigilant? Or is this a
yeah,
physical pain? Or is this an illness? Or am I deathly ill with COVID or inflammation or have to go to that? In other words, the mind doesn't know what it is, but I know I have to get rid of it. And so I'm like, it's a character flaw that I can't, meditate my way out of this or relax my way out of this. And then it just
yes,
escalate. So I know exactly
right,
what you mean. Like to let go
yeah,
of the whole wondering if it's physical, emotional,
yes, yes,
psychological, and
yeah.
go sensation. Yeah.
And do you get this? This is a big one. This is definitely on the path stuff we're talking about. That 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 what the mind is trying to do is to distract you from the feeling with all of those
Yes, it's trying to save me and get me out.
craziness.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so it's trying to save you from we would almost call it the monster under the bed. It's the mind. The mind thinks that it'll be absolutely disastrous for you to feel this thing fully, but the mind is lying to you. It doesn't know. It has good intentions, but it doesn't. It's misguided. So by
Even with
going,
intention, even with
well,
really,
yeah, it is good intentions, even though it's doing it in a crazy way. It's trying to keep you away from feeling. Right? But the what I'm saying is ignore the mind and go into the feeling. Go right into the feeling as absolutely intimately as possible into the feeling. And what will happen is that feeling will change when you do that. It's not an attempt to fix it, mind you. This is really important. What it's an attempt to do is to experience it at its deepest level. And the consequence is it will change. Your labels of pain and suffering won't work anymore at that level. It won't be pleasant, but it will be different to what it was when you're mainly got the mind trying to keep you away from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just feels like, no, well, now this kind of pain is too strong. I shouldn't feel it. Or now it's in the middle of the night. I don't have time to go into it. I just need to get rid of it. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
But you're saying no matter
exactly.
what time of day or night and no matter how intense it is, this is still a useful, helpful
Yes,
technique. Mm-hmm.
yes, yes.
Okay.
That's a good technique for a whole lot of reasons. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
yeah. So try that, and it's definitely an experience for you to do. And I would very much like to get feedback from you on that, how it went for you. So do come along to the next meeting and talk about it, eh?
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And even if it's for hours, in other words, or at some point it's like, okay, I did this for 2 minutes and now go and try to get rid of the pain or take a painkiller, or like for however long it lasts, I should just do this.
Yeah, yeah. There's no should. Okay, don't get into the should thing. Um, you will do it whilever you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they say even that word can is not right. But whilever you are able to do it, you will do it. And
Mm-hmm.
if at some point you decide that a painkiller is appropriate, you just go and have a painkiller. Right? So what will trigger you to have a painkiller is the intensity of it. It may get unbearable. Then you'll go and have a painkiller.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or that I'll need to go and do something else with my life, so I won't have time to continue the exploration. In other words, whatever, just do it, and when it
Yes.
makes, yeah.
Yeah. But if you do decide that you need to go and do something else, that's fine. But ask
Mm-hmm.
yourself, is that doing something else like the mind just trying to distract you from what's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But that's okay too.
Sure.
or not.
Yeah. Everything's okay. Absolutely everything is okay. Yeah.
Right. All right. My one fear is that I can be in so many hours in a row of paying attention. So how will this work? But um, don't worry about it. Just do what I can.
Yes. You just do whatever happens. Yeah. So I mean, if it goes on for a long time and you're able to, fine. If you're not able to, that's also fine. You know, you will have no doubt you will have other opportunities. So today's Wednesday. My next meeting's Friday morning. So you that gives you like 48 hours or whatever to experience. You'll have lots of possibilities in that time.
Mm-hmm. And I just did one more question. When I had some of these deep experiences of relaxation, my body is so not used to it that I think it's putting off my circadian rhythm because I'm so not used to it and I'm so relaxed at certain times that then my body is just like, do you understand what it, like
Yeah.
when you're coming from a state of constant tension, hypervigilance, and hysteria almost internally, and then it's like this deep relaxation. My body doesn't know what to do with it. It's as if I like slept all day because I was relaxed for a few hours from one of the meetings, and then like I'm up all night. I don't know. It's throwing me off. Have you ever heard of such a thing? I guess I'm kind of afraid to relax. It's probably the mind just trying to distract me again, but I'm afraid to go into the deep relaxation because I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like I feel befuddled. Like I feel my organism is going to need to find a new balance and a new way of being. You know what I mean? With a deeper relaxation, and then figure out how to like have a circadian rhythm of sleep and awakeness on a different level of tension or adrenaline for the night and day. Anyway, that's just an aside if you'd ever heard of it, because it's something that's scaring me. But
Yeah. So you're definitely going to be in a whole new world of stuff going on like that. But your body will always find balance. It'll look for balance. And
okay.
so, yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about that one. But I mean, it depends on circumstances. If you sleep all day, then you don't need to sleep at night. Well, that's fine. You know, I don't see any problems with that. But if you've got to go to work the next day, that's a different matter, isn't it? So, you know, you want to regulate yourself as much as you need to. Um,
Right.
but
It's not that I'm sleeping. It's that when I have those deep relaxation experiences for hours in the day, my body reacts as if I slept.
yes,
Just when I'm
yes.
being like more deeply, and there's some relaxation of the system. Um, yeah, so I guess that's where I get confused with the word. When you say be obsessive about it, you don't know who you're talking to, and I can take it a little far, and maybe
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but but
No, I'll say once again that I'm just talking about being obsessive about waking up.
right,
Um,
right,
yeah, so, but again, that's not something you choose to do. You either are or you aren't. Yeah,
right,
that's the way it is. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I would say you're in a place, and you sound to me like you've got an attitude of an explorer, and that's good value. I like
mm-hmm,
that. I like what I hear. Yeah,
mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was helpful.
good. Okay. We'll see you again, hopefully, Tammy.
Okay. Thanks so much.
All right.
Interesting.
Mm,
You know, Vince, I still think I think differently than the most people in the group. All
yeah,
people in the group.
yeah, I think you do too. But I think everybody thinks differently as well. Nobody really thinks the same. But yeah,
So it's not just a pattern from the past. I do really think differently.
I suspect that you've always thought differently ever since you started to think, maybe. Just from things you've told me, I think, you know, from the very early days, you were a different kind of thinker. So all these people that have thought that weren't part of the mainstream, that did think differently, but they all think differently to each other as well. So nobody thinks the same. And that's neither good nor bad. That's just the way it is, isn't it? It's just the mix. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to not to cling to a hope that one day I will find a group of people who think exactly like me.
If you did, nobody would need to say anything. Everybody would sit there in silence. After you confirm that you all think the same. What's that saying? Viva la difference. Yeah.
And I was thinking about the word appropriate. It's like we're not using right and wrong, but we will smuggle it underneath the word appropriate.
Yes. Yeah.
How do I know what is appropriate and what is not?
Yeah. It's all a value judgment, isn't it? Every bit of it. Yeah. I mean, if we say appropriate, then we also confirm not appropriate. Yeah. So finding the right words a tricky one in that one. So I do use the word appropriate, and what I mean is, does it fit? If
Then
it's
you must
appropriate,
have a goal, a purpose in mind.
yeah. Well, we are saying there is an implication that if it fits, it's good. If it doesn't fit, it's not good. So, but then if it,
It's like these shoes are good for walking.
yes, well, bare feet are good for the first 100 meters, and then the feet get sore, so then shoes are appropriate. I like bare feet in the summertime, but if I haven't worn them, if I haven't been outside with bare feet a lot and developed calluses, then feet are tender. And I have certainly experienced that where I've started off on a walk barefoot, and then within 100 meters, I've wished I put shoes on because my feet are too tender. So it's not appropriate to say, there you go, it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate to say shoes are either good or not good. They're not good for the first 100 meters, and they're good for everything after that.
Yeah, because as with my attacks of anxiety and panic, it's like at first it seems that they are inappropriate, that they are not adequate to the situation,
Mm.
but maybe not to the outside situation, but they are appropriate because they are a countermeasure to other mechanism that
Yes.
also goes in my head. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's all a very relative thing, isn't it? From
Mm.
one perspective, they're not. From another perspective, they are, and from another perspective, they.
It's like seeing the bigger picture, and when it's like looking at some mechanism and what's this? What's this part? What is it for? It does nothing. It's not needed. Let's take it up and throw it out, and then everything stops working. Why?
Yeah. Exactly. And so, and of course, it's always an attempt to keep everything working, isn't it? So as much as we can say from one perspective, it's not appropriate. From another perspective, it keeps things working. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Even the heaviest shit has good intentions. We don't do things with bad intentions.
Yes, it's like sometimes I want to say to someone, don't be so hard on yourself. But maybe they need to.
Yeah, could be.
How can I know?
That's right. Yeah. Sometimes it seems that they're unnecessarily harsh with themselves. And so, we because we see it from our perspective, we go, "Well, that's not conducive to something positive, to something good." Mm. And maybe we're right and maybe we're not. Who knows? Do you have many episodes these days of
No, I
anxiety?
oh, I almost miss them.
Yes, there you go. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Yes.
They would keep me in check.
Mm, amazing, isn't it? So it's not until they're gone that we appreciate the value they had. Yeah, yeah. And it seems crazy, but people will mourn these things when they're gone sometimes.
Well, I said almost.
Almost, yeah.
I don't miss them that much.
Mm, mm. So how are you, Lou?
I'm good. I'm good. I didn't speak because I've got I don't feel like I've got anything to say. Just
Sounds good.
yeah, quite peaceful and amongst everything going on, but just yeah. I was really interested in. I just had to go off for a phone call, but you were talking to somebody earlier about really experiencing the sensations, and there's been a particular sensation that's always been on the right hand side of my face that's quite well, I don't know what it is actually. I realize I'm trying to reach for an explanation. And it's like it feels like an iceberg. It feels like sometimes some of it melts away, and then sometimes it feels like some of it's chipped off, like a big piece is just chipped off, like the other day. And I think I spent a long time trying to get rid of it. And like even now, just talking about it, I can feel the pressure in my ears. It kind of puts some pressure in the ears. And when you talked about really getting into the sensation, sometimes I just go to the edge and just step in a little bit and feel into it. And then that's when I get the jolts sometimes still. I don't get them regularly now, just when I get to that. But you talked about how you become the sensation, and there's a point at which the actual sensation seems to disappear. Like before that, the story has disappeared, and then I'm obviously in the sensation. And what I picked up on is you're still describing the sensation. You're describing how it feels. And then I just a couple of times I've actually got really into it, and even that disappears. But it doesn't last for very long. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. What comes to mind is that those sensations that disappear might be like a lift, an elevator that takes you down to another level where there are other sensations.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm just playing with stories here, right? So it's something that you need to experience to validate or otherwise. But so what I'm getting at is that those are sensations that are an expression of some shadow. So something that not yet released. Whereas the other sensations that I was talking about were essentially yeah, this doesn't quite work, right? But they were sensations that come from the outside. rather than come from the inside. So sensations that come from the stimulation of sensory organs, right? So in other words, the sense of touch and so on, those are the ones that you can become the sensation. You can become the experiencing of that then. So we're talking about experiencing as in general as such there, whereas those ones that do dissolve and disappear, that dissolving, I would explore whether that dissolving is a way of not getting any deeper with that.
Interesting.
I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
I've got Bianca watching me here, and she's going to call me out on any bullshit. You know, so I don't know about the you know, it's just something that you have to experiment with.
That's interesting. I hadn't. Yeah. That's interesting. I can feel it now. It's
Yeah.
It's like sometimes I sit like this because it feels like there's a big bubble,
Yes.
big strong ball of energy. Yeah.
And I would say that is your sensitivity to what is occurring for you, you know. So there's way beyond words to describe the push and pull and heaviness and heat and color of any of this kind of stuff, right? That it is symbolic, even you might say, but it is physical. The symbolism becomes physical because of your level of sensitivity to it, and it's because you're not protecting from it anymore. You're not just running away and dissolving it and diverting your attention away from it. You're now open to its existence, and so consequently it takes on a much more tangible experience.
Yeah. I hadn't considered that the what I thought was dissolving could be. I don't know. We should.
Just try it. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
And so when before it starts, if it starts to dissolve, back off a little bit, so that for a start, there's a question here whether or not the dissolving is relative to your closeness to it. If you're getting really close and it's dissolving, then back off a little bit to stop it from dissolving so that it doesn't run away from you by dissolving.
I thought that was the aim, to dissolve it.
No, the aim is for it to not be necessary, for it not to be triggered.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not there. Sometimes it's really flowing, clear and light. But more often it is there. But I don't.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, eh? It's not
No,
like,
it's not a big
you know,
deal. It used to be, but not anymore. No, it's just
yeah. No, you definitely want to be friends with it and invite it to be open with you. Yeah. Bianca's getting all
very
excited.
curious. I got very curious. This is just childlike curiosity. Have you tried taking a picture of your face when you're feeling the sensation, and and making a face from one half of your face?
I did. I did that there because
Photoshop.
I did that the other week, and it's very, very different. It's very different. I've got two very different. It's like two different people, and I guess that's the same.
Yeah.
But as I'm speaking to Vince, I can feel it. It's starting to clench. My eyes start to clench, and it's just making itself known for some reason.
Yeah. That side of your face is lower than the other side looking at you.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting that your hair is over that side of your face.
Yes,
The way
it's true.
you brushed your hair there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, to hide. Yeah, yeah. It's funny. Pernilla does an exercise where you close your eyes and you look to the top and to the bottom like a paintbrush, and then you do left to right, up, down. She talks about it resetting the brain. And then you kind of go around in a clock and you go to 5, 10, 15. And when I get to the number 3, it starts really shaking. It starts really shaking. And then, so I don't stay there too long. And then I go around, and the left-hand side is just fine. Just no problem. But it gets 10, 15, it starts wobbling a bit. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
amazing.
interesting from a couple of angles, and one of them is that that's your right side, which is your left brain controlling your right side. So your left brain is your creative side.
Yeah.
Is it?
Left brain controls the right side of the body. Right brain controls the left side of the body. And your left brain,
Yeah.
not always the case. Some people are the opposite way around, but nevertheless, generally speaking, left brain is the creative.
I always thought the left brain is this logical
Oh, you're right.
part.
You're right. No, you're right. You're right. I'm the wrong way around. Yes.
If you are
Yeah.
right-handed.
Yeah. Left brain, right hand. Yeah. Right brain.
Yeah, left side of the brain is primarily responsible for language, logic, and analytical thinking, and controlling the right side of the body. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. So
Because
that puts it not in a
yeah.
creative, but it puts it in a control aspect.
Yes. Letting go of that control. Yeah. Which is what that experience was the other day, you know, letting go and freeing from the shackles of being
Mm, mm,
constrained as all those rules of who I thought I was
yep.
and what other people thought I was.
And when that
Yeah.
stuff was so big for you, as it was the other day, it would be quite unlikely that you would do it all in one go.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny because since then, this has got stronger.
Mm.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
So we could just speculate that it's trying to reassert control.
Yeah.
We can't have Louise running around being spontaneous. That'll get her into trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I just literally just hold it here, just say it's okay, because it's like it's quite visceral.
Mm. Is it cold? You said iceberg, but were you referring to the cold, or you're referring to
The
just
analogy more, yeah.
the
The melt,
visible, the
yeah,
tip of the iceberg kind of thing?
yeah. And the melting and the chipping, they can come away in 2 different ways.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love having something to be
interesting.
curious about. Isn't it
Yeah,
interesting?
me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Always, yeah. That's funny. I actually got my paints out this morning, and I found it really difficult to sit down, and part of me wants to just sit and draw and paint, and then I got restless. I just couldn't. Yeah, got things to do.
Yeah.
And now I'm here.
Mm.
Yeah, there's been a lot more of that. Just I can't even think ahead for the day what I'm going to do. I have to write maybe 2 or 3 things down, but it is just stuff comes and I know that it's time to do that. and then to do that. It's not how I operated for many years. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, well, see, that's really interesting, because that's so unfamiliar and so new that it's like finding yourself in a different world. You know, you don't even know
Yeah.
who Louise is anymore. You know, you have to wait and find out. Yeah.
Yeah. And some old patterns came up in relating to my son, and I was tired and grumpy one morning, and my other son pointed out, which was great that he could do that, because before he wouldn't have done that, and I could feel the tenseness, like, well, I could feel their defensiveness come up. Well, blah blah blah. It was totally different. I was like, oh yeah, I can see that. It's like I could see myself from that point of view, really,
Yeah.
really easily. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we just laughed about it. It was no big deal. Okay, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
it. It's okay. It's good. Yeah, and it just showed it's not in isolation. The whole, any conversation is a dance of happenings and responses, and
Yeah.
it's just backwards and forwards. Yeah, and then leaving it behind is nothing to drag along, if that makes sense. Yeah, all good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering about what having stuff to respond to, because it seems like all I do is respond all day, every day, just respond. And I'm wondering if there's, you know, and in fact, when I started this meeting, because nobody was here for a moment, I found myself almost in a trance, you know, in a meditative state, just quite happily
Oh, it's lovely.
floating, you know. Yeah,
Nothing to respond
nothing to
to.
respond to. Yes.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's lovely. Yeah. Do you know what? I get that sometimes in the car when I'm sat in traffic, in the supermarket, in a line, and you know when there's the moments that usually would be diversions, or
Mm.
I want to distract, get my phone out. It's just, oh, I've got a moment, just
Yes.
just a moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're quite rare, actually, those moments. They're really appreciated when they turn up. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and
Thank
just
you,
seeing
Louise.
that all anybody else is doing is responding. Yeah. I still don't see. I know Maris talks a lot about others. Like, I still think there's others. That's just where I'm at. Mm.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, that one. I don't know about that. Um, I behave as if there are others all the time, but I frequently find that I relate to others in the same way I relate to inanimate things. You know, that I don't see any difference between a person and a tree, or a person and a garbage bin. You know, they're just things that are there.
Yeah. I think the thing that's changed since that thing on Sunday is there has been a slight subtle shift to responding to people as if it's me. Like, but it's not a doing. It's like there's just there's something dropped where I have to be defensive, and well, that example with my son was one, but like if the judgment comes up, it comes up really quickly, and then it's just seen really quickly. It's just that how do I want to be? And that's a doing. I'm just trying to think what it.
I didn't see you say that, but I get I get my version of that. That
It's almost like the new. What's the new Louise? If that makes sense,
Mhm.
or the new way of like seeing things. What does that look like, rather than just going straight to the pattern? What could?
Yeah, I get
what
that.
could this? What could this look like instead? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I had an example earlier today where I commented on one of Marius's posts, and somebody commented on my comment that I took to be a disparaging remark, and I did have the thoughts about where he was coming from, what was going on for him, and then recognise that they were defensive thoughts, protective thoughts about something.
Yeah.
And then in the end, I just responded with, okay, ... like, I'm not going to get into an argument. I'm not going to get into a discussion about this. It was just, you can be however you want to be. That's nothing to do with me kind of response. But it was in between selfing and not selfing. There was a protective thought pattern arose, but it was seen and not responded to. Yet it was responded to in a way. There was still that offhanded, okay, was my response. So it was still there.
Yeah.
It was like, oh well, is it appropriate? Again, is it appropriate even to answer him? To say anything? Maybe I should have just ignored it. I don't know. But there you go. So that in between stuff, that it wasn't
Yeah.
selfing. It wasn't defensive. It was, it was both, but neither kind of thing.
And just seeing the whole picture of that as the experience of that interaction. Yeah.
But it was minus the gut clench that would have happened once upon a time. I still remember that.
Yeah. And there's like such freedom in seeing that other people come from that conditioning. They come from.
Yeah, and there was a degree of sadness about that. I mean, it's, I did feel quite sad that he felt the need to be aggressive and whatever in that way.
Yeah.
It's a shame, sad that he has to do that. He's still lost in that stuff. Yeah.
But that's just a tool, isn't it? It's a tool. It's just like, it's another tool of anyone's journey. Like if they bump into you or Marius or anybody else on as we bump into somebody else's conditioning, it's just another play of thoughts and experiences, which are, it's just on the journey. Well, it's not a journey, but do you know what I mean? It's just another pop-up.
Yep, just a happening.
I'd love to say that I just sometimes, if you know, not responding with that defensiveness feels so freeing. But I know that it's a bit of a delusion to think that that won't ever, you know, that will go away fully.
Yeah, who knows whether it will or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I applaud that it's at the point that it's at. That's great, I think, you know.
Yeah.
It would suggest that it will probably eventually not, but who knows whether it will actually ever go right away. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. I mean, you know, it is what it is. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's
Even
nice.
like it's even like, just, it sounds a bit weird. Like, it seems like challenging myself to just go beyond what I would normally do. Like if I'm out and about, to look people in the eye more, or to hold a gaze a bit longer, because I find that difficult. Or, you know, if I like somebody's shoes, just say it. You know, if they don't respond, it's just
Yeah, it
little
doesn't matter.
things. Just, yeah, just getting, I'm comfortable getting out of my comfort zone a little bit, you know. Yeah, it's that curiosity again, rather than sitting in this comfy chair, just see what happens.
Yeah. I think that extends your comfort zone too until eventually you're comfortable with everything. Maybe. Good story anyway.
Yeah, it is a good story. Yeah.
Oh, then I want to say, it struck me how beautiful you look.
Oh, bless you.
You so peaceful.
Yeah. So how did that hit you, Louise?
Oh, and with the shadows of leaves and sound through the leaves and trees behind you in the reflection and the wind in your hair. It's you look like a portrait.
Oh, bless you, Bianca. Thank you. Beautiful lady,
Yes.
beautiful soul. I received that with the love that it's given, and I couldn't do that a few months ago because it's not. Yeah. So a lot of people have said that recently. You just got this peaceful, calm thing around you. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. I want to thank you too, Bianca. That's made me feel wonderful. Love that. Yeah.
I think we talked about that the other day, that acknowledge, that's the other thing, is just that freedom to acknowledge people. That's a gift. It's a real gift, isn't it? We keep it inside. We keep it inside. And it's not a gift for the person. I think it's more of a gift for the person giving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciation is beautiful.
Yeah. I want to share something. My autistic son, who's 18, and for the last year, he regressed quite a lot with his speech and language and processing. And you know what? In the last 3 weeks, he went on a sailing trip, and he was amongst like-minded young teenagers and with adults who understood special needs. And they took them sailing for 4 days, and they visited places, they hung out, they danced, they sang, and you know what? He's just like a different person. It's just like a different person. And it's just so, like, how do you express that into, like, it's just such a simple thing, but it was such, when I see him and he's funny, he's telling jokes, and he's just expressing as this young boy, this young man, and it really, just like Bianca just said to me, and I said that to him, and I expressed everything I saw right from the heart. I said, I'm so proud of you, you know, your confidence and your humor, and he just said, I'm proud of myself. And
Good.
that's, do you know what I mean? That's enough. So, you know, there's ups and downs in life, but, you know,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
it's just a simple experience, but it was very rich. Yeah.
Oh, they can be absolutely life-changing, those things. Yes.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. Mm.
And you can appreciate that in him as really brilliant, really good stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, a year ago, and the whole last year, I realized I was waking up with such negative thoughts about where he's at and he's progressing and all this negative language. And I just see it. It's, I don't mean affirmations, but it's not making it happen, but it's the yin and yang. It's like there's both, you know, and if I focus on that, but I see the light in him. I see him shine. I see him shine. It's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I've got a 16 or almost 17-year-old grandson. He's got ADHD, but he's not. Well, he's probably is on the spectrum, but not extremely so. But you know, I'm lucky to get a grunt out of him when it comes to, you know. So you're lucky. You're lucky you've got a disabled son who's more expressive at that age than, you know, if he was so-called normal, you know, you'd be lucky to get anything out of him at that age. Yeah.
He's my biggest teacher. I tell you, he's been my biggest teacher over the years, and is yeah. I've got a 16-year-old who's 16 today as well. So,
Well, he's the same age as my grandson. Yeah.
yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
He's interested in becoming a Buddhist.
Oh, good on him. Yeah, there you go. My grandson just wants to be a gamer.
Okay. Yeah. It's quite normal.
Yeah, absolutely normal. Yeah.
I think getting just a grant it's also quite normal at this
Yeah,
age.
yeah. I accept that. It is normal. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Louise is lucky. She gets more than a grunt out of her son. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's you know, after you've seen what appeared to be you know, there was a lot of fear around, is there something wrong with his, as he had something happen in his brain, and so when he slams the door because he's angry, do you know, there's part of me that's like, yes, he's normal. Do you know what I mean? He's like, yes, because it's not personal. It's like he's expressing as
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing, huge thing to not take
Yeah.
these things personally, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's not that I don't get emotions, but it's just, it's all part of the big bundle of stuff going
Yeah,
on.
of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. Mm. Well, he's getting to the age where he'll cease to be, or you'll cease to be mother and become friend. I think that happens at somewhere around this age, maybe, or
Yeah.
after this
Well,
age. But yeah,
yeah. Well, it's funny because with this clarity of I realized I was getting into the mode of being a carer, like a full-time carer, and there was a definite shift into a different role. And there was definitely some resentment around that. And so what I've been able to do is put stuff in place, like, you know, he is 8. He doesn't want his mum telling him how to cross the road or dump money and, you know, being there all the time. And yeah, so I've been able to just see quite clearly and very slowly and gradually, with a bit of thought, put stuff in place where he, you know, we can get a carer for him and find the next place for him. But before, it was just dramatic and chaotic. It was so different. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's you moving out of those roles. That's a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to go back and be with my wife again. Yeah.
Nice to
Thank
see you. Thank you.
Yes.
Bye,
Good.
Bianca.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.